Obi, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Chilling, chilling,
Chilling.
literally chilling. It's chilly outside. I'm in New Jersey. Sun is shining, but wind is blowing. But feeling pretty good, man. Doing all right. Even though it's a crazy day today, election is happening, so it's gnarly. We don't have to hang there, but it's a
I mean,
gnarly day.
yeah, it's a real thing, man. It's happening, and it's been looming for months, and I just hope whatever happens that we can keep striving for some sort of, I don't know, peaceful.
That's what I'm saying, man. Man. The older I get, the more I just care about humanity, and I just want to see people win, and specifically creative people. So I just hope we get to a place where people like yourself and myself and all of our friends can get back to work and do what we do, and yeah, in the meantime, just stay scrappy and creative and move the needle forward.
Yeah, I love that. It's obviously it sucks, this whole thing, but it forces us to innovate, I think, and be creative. And there's I see projects, excuse me, projects coming together, that may not have happened, in normal times. There's a lot of artists that we can't tour, so it's like you got artists reaching out to other artists like, hey, you want to sing on our song, or do you want to start a little side project we just kind of do from the basement, like.
Yeah.
And the way we release things now, like with Spotify and all that, and kind of cutting out the middleman. You don't need a label anymore, and using sites like DistroKid or CD Baby or something, TuneCore. You can upload whenever you want, and it's really opened up the doors.
Yeah, and I think a positive too is like people get hip to like a lot of those services, but also get hip to like, yeah, well, why am I going to spend this much money on this when I can put more money into this part of like promoting this project? You know what I mean? Or like, like why does TuneCore charge what they charge? Like, what are we doing? Like, is there a better solution out there? So like, I feel like there's people are even thinking like, well, hey, how can we offer more services to musicians? Where like more money goes in their pocket and they're not strapped, but it allows them to accomplish more with a little bit. You know what I mean? It's rad. It's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Being able to, I don't know. As I said, it really opened it up. It kind of everything's pretty flat now. Like as far as like, it's so saturated because anybody can do it, and we I love seeing people take advantage of it, and then as you said, like realize like, hey, well, there's a lot of competition now. There's a lot of different services, like distribution services, like platforms. So maybe there's something better. We use DistroKid. We were using InGrooves, and they were taking a cut. I think it was like a 20% cut or something, which is not terrible. It's pretty reasonable. But I was like, you know what? Like, I felt like for us, like we'd sort of been putting out a lot of the same. We've been putting out the music, but it was kind of there wasn't anything new happening. Like I didn't see any like opportunities arising from working with this specific company. So I was kind of like, well, if we don't really have anybody really working our record, why am I paying someone to do that?
Yes.
And when we had a great successful campaign with them with our girls record, I'm not shitting on them. I'm just saying that like after that, it just sort of felt like maybe the attention went away a little bit, even though it was a very successful rollout, actually our most successful rollout ever. But then yeah, it sort of felt like the attention left maybe, and they were great people to work with. And they were totally cool about us, splitting. But I just saw the DistroKid thing. I was like, well, it's 100%. And here's where the difference is. Okay.
Yeah.
So they take that 20% at the other place because they have people dedicated sort of to take care of you when you need help. DistroKid is a good service, but their customer service, it takes a couple days to hear from anybody, and you have to go through this like insane, like, are you sure? Like, did you check the
Yeah, yeah,
FAQ?
yeah.
Like that kind of stuff where it's like, I need, and my band we do a lot of streams, we do a lot of business, and like sometimes I don't have time to wait,
Sure.
you know, and so that's what you're paying for with that little cut. So it is up to you to figure out, how you want to do it, but it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that we're starting this conversation just jumping into the numbers. I'm sorry, listeners. I'm sorry, but I
This
mean,
is a
it's like,
nerdy podcast.
but it's so true. The big point is that like it's there for you to figure out, and the idea that I need X, Y, and Z behind me to accomplish whatever I'm trying to accomplish, like, dude, it's so much better to like get with a group of friends and find somebody that you trust, and you're like, here, this is what I do. I love you. I trust you. If you try to do anything, I'm going to punch you in the face. But like, this is what I need you to do. And like, you build your team, and I feel like there are more and more people willing to kind of take that journey. You know what I mean? It really, like, now more than ever, like, whatever, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, like the journey of like, oh, well, we got to get signed and we got to go on tour and we got to go do this. Like, that was a journey in and of itself. That journey is still there because that tour component, when it comes back, 2022, maybe, like, that's always going to be a part of the story. But like, there's another journey now where you can like literally, sit in your kitchen and like have a strategy and build a business and, go at it. And every day, like you're working it and working it.
Yeah.
That's what's fascinating. It's like, it has to be a daily thing. It has to be a daily grind. Right. Um, Vinny and I talk about it all the time. We're like, dude, all we want to do is just move the needle forward. If we move the needle forward just a tiny bit, as long as it moves forward every day, solid. You know what I mean? It's a win. It's a victory. And we'll celebrate that rather than getting bummed out about 10 other things that maybe didn't happen. The needle move forward so we can always stay winning.
Yeah, yeah. I love what you said about just being in your kitchen and sort of creating a release strategy or a marketing strategy. Like, you can make the record in your basement and
Yeah.
then go up to the kitchen and figure out the marketing plan. That's just where we are.
Dude, it's so rad. And the cool part is like, like I've got two little girls, right? I've got a 7-year old and I've got another little girl who's about to be 2. But my 7-year old is like watching, dad be an entrepreneur. Her mom's an entrepreneur. My 7-year old like loves music, like loves like singing. So like she's paying attention to all this stuff, and she's like watching, like paying attention to the inevitables. Like it's like tripped me out the other day. Like we went out. I picked her up after school, and we were going to grab some lunch, and she's like, "Dad, I'm gonna go home and play Spotify. I'm definitely gonna listen to the Inevitables, and I'm definitely gonna listen." Like, her taste in music is like everywhere, right? She's like everything from like K-pop to like reggae to it's like it's awesome. So, but it trips, like she's watching all this happen and she's like asking the question. So, well, how do you get a record? Like, Dad, can I get a record on Spotify? Can I do this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, to her, it's not like this thing that's so far away. She's watching it happen in her daily life. She's like, yeah, like when I get a record on Spotify, Dad, will you record my record? Like it's awesome. I love it. I love that, what it's doing to inspire, like, next generation. It's rad. It's going to be, and it's crazy. Like by the time she's doing it, who knows what the hell's going to be happening in the music industry?
It's definitely like, it's so much. It's not that it's easy, but it's easier than it was, back when you and I started. I started my band in the '90s, and we would dream about making a CD. Like
Right.
CD is when you were doing shit. You were like, you made it. And I had my disc maker's catalog. It was like $3,000 to make 1,000 CDs at the time, and it felt like $1 million. It might as well have been. But my kids, the same. It's they're creative people. My daughter's definitely a performer of some type. She loves dancing and singing. My son can play drums, but he's also into, he loves the new hip hop. Like it's more like this guy, the Kid Leroy. It's very, it's kind of like everybody's like biting like Post Malone, kind of, sort of like that. But this is a different flavor. Anyway, it's his like favorite dude, and like he's making YouTube videos. He's like using iMovie and like Video Leap on his iPhone, just like editing, and like his editing's getting much better. He's really gotten into the editing part of it. He's starting to add like little clips here and there. If something happens in a game, because he plays games, if something happens in a game and he's like, it's like a whoa moment, he'll take a clip from the internet and be like an explosion or something, like whoa, just things like
That's
that,
cool.
man. He's a little creative dude, and I'm just so happy to see it. And as you said, like, wow, what is it going to be like, by the time they're in their 20s and 30s? I don't know. It's incredible.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. I can't wait because it's like it's all happening, it's all shifting, and the cool thing is that because we get to do what we do, you get to keep your pulse, your finger on the pulse. So you're kind of like, you're either going to go with it or we're just going to become dinosaurs, And in a way, we are dinosaurs already, but like,
Yeah.
in terms of like just how things happen, because like I remember talking to somebody like who does hip hop, and they were like, oh, well, I'm just going to be a SoundCloud rapper. Like, I just want to be a SoundCloud rapper. And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, yes, SoundCloud's a huge platform, but like there's this part and then there's this part, like there's like people want to see like actually how you get the tune on SoundCloud. Like there's so many angles you can go at releasing music, you know what I mean? And it's like, nah, I don't have any time for that. And I'm just like, dude, it's 2020, man. Like if you don't have time for it, I'm sorry. Like, I don't care how great your rhymes are, your beats are, you know what I mean? They're like, nah, like, it's funny. There's music purists everywhere. As long as the music is dope, like it's gonna hit. And it's just like, nah, dude,
It doesn't work that
nah,
way.
man. Like, sorry, dude. It's not how it works. But
I tell people all the time on the show, and it's like, it's like the dude Daniel Ek from Spotify, the CEO. He's a billionaire, and he makes money off of our art, right?
yeah,
And so I understand where his comments and the things that he does, the way he lives, I can see how that's like offensive.
yeah,
But I mean, the dude just got smart and was like, oh shit, I can do this. And what he said recently, I guess a couple months ago, and people got mad about it, was like, you have to, the days of, recording a record and then 3 or 4 years later putting out another record, like that's over. Like you have to be more frequent and more consistent. And
absolutely.
it's like, I saw that coming for the last couple of years now. I'm like, there's something happening. There's a transition. There's like a paradigm shift or something like it, where it's just not what it was. And like, you have to sort of unlearn what you learned over the last, for me, 25 years of being in a band. Back then, when, and the same for you, when you started Westbound Train, is like, you probably wanted to get signed to a label and you wanted to go on tour for sure. And for me, I wanted to be on the radio and I wanted to be on SNL and play the VMAs. Those are the things you strive for. And today it's like, I mean, yeah, you have dudes that are like, there are artists that are like breaking on SoundCloud for sure. It does happen. It absolutely happens. But the likelihood of that, you can't depend on that. You got to just, don't put all your ducks in the, what is it? All the eggs in the basket or whatever.
Yeah.
You got to spread it around. People got to realize that like everything is content. Like as you said, people want to see you like making the song. They want to see what your day is like. What is it that, show them how you make that beat, or like working on a few different versions of this verse or something. Show that. There's this whole other component, with the video stuff. And I think people need to get to know you. And then once they love you, they'll support whatever you do. So you really got to build that organic relationship with your audience.
Yeah.
And it starts from the grassroots level.
A dude, like, so for the sake of transparency, like a dude like me, like I hate all that stuff, right? Like I hate putting myself out there. I'm lucky that I love the behind the scenes stuff, right? Like I'm lucky, like all the stuff that you and I are kind of sort of talking, the numbers and all that stuff that we're talking about right now, like I love geeking out on that all day long, right? So that can happen behind the scenes. I don't need to be, like showing it. I could give everybody insight into that, but I love like, okay, we're making a record. we need artwork done. Here's what it's going to take to finish the record. I need these pieces. I've got these beds. I've got these stems. I've got these, whatever, all the stuff that goes into making a record. Nobody has to see any me chasing down musicians for parts. Like nobody has to see like me organizing like, hey, I'll pay you this much to do this or whatever the case is. Like I've been very lucky that I can hang behind the scenes and geek out on that stuff and create, without anybody having to pay attention to it. And then all of a sudden, here's the product,
Yeah.
like sick that works, I own a merchandising company. So like nobody gets to see that like, okay, cool. Like I can hang behind the scenes and make projections and this is what our dollar per head should be every night. And this is how it should go. And yeah, like we're projecting this based on these ticket sales. And like, dude, I don't need any glory from that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, do the thing. So, but now again, for the sake of transparency, there's that side, but then there's a side of me that loves being a musician and just loves being an artist and loves being a singer, you know, like I've always wanted to be like an R&B singer. So it's like funny that Westbound Train was like my thing. Cause I loved Jamaican music. I loved early ska, early reggae music. Like when I found it and I found my way to it from like the punk world, but even then there was always this piece of me that was just like, dude, I just want to sing. Like, I just want to be an R&B singer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to be, and I feel like I'm still trying to figure that side out, So all that to say, like, yes, there's the business, but then like there's the art and the craft that just like never dies. Like that spirit's always burning in you. You know what I mean? So I think guys like you and I have to find the balance, because it's easy for me to just geek out on all the stuff that we're talking about, even with like the inevitables, it's easy for me and Vinny to geek out and go, okay, here's what's going to come with this. And here's how we want this to look. And like, oh, like, what about this? And we're going to create this experience this way. You know what I mean? Nobody has to have any insight into that at all. And then it just happens. And then people are like, oh, that's the thing. You're showing me the thing. We didn't show you the 5 things that went into making the thing though. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So interesting stuff.
It is, yeah, it is. There's something to be said for having just having this product, and there it is in all its glory, and it's beautiful and polished and done the way you want it. I enjoyed that, but I like doing the behind the scenes thing. I've always been intrigued by that. I saw the value in it a long time ago. What if I just flip the camera on while I'm writing this song right now? What if I like get over there's always been this mysticism when you're writing or working on a record, and you want to keep it wrapped up. And the big bands get the leaks and stuff, and it comes out 2 weeks early or something, because people want it. And for me, sometimes I'll be working on a song that I'm like, this is definitely going to get released at some point, but it'll be in its infancy, and I'll throw it on Instagram. Be like, what do you think of this? And I'll just do it.
Yeah.
And to me, there's some value to that. It sort of shows people that I'm a real person, and and this is just me working on my craft. Here in the bat cave. That's what I call it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So it's, obviously whatever works for you and other artists. I mean, definitely, keep that up. So I started my band in '95. You say you started, you say around 2001. Was this something like you guys just sort of like kind of started jamming, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, we should maybe play a show Friday, and just kind of, and then everybody just stuck around for 20 years? It was weird
because, okay, so like I graduated high school in like 99, right? And so like 90s, when the ska boom kind of hit, I was playing like in a punk ska band in high school. And that's like where like I just learned a ton, right? Like I was booking shows, we put out our own record, making your own record. Like that's where I got to see everything, and it just kind of had a big impact, but towards the end, I knew that like I started to discover, like early Jamaican music, like early ska and early reggae and all that jazz. And I knew in my head that I wanted to go in that direction. So I went to college in Boston. When I got up there, I like found like the one bass player who like knew about ska, which was, our bass player Thad, and he kind of got into it via like the ska punk world as well, the two-tone thing. But at heart, like, dude was really like a jazz head at heart. Like, he wanted to be that was his thing. So when we discovered like, early ska, and we were like, oh wow, it's taking all these jazz influences and all these R&B influences. Like, it was like just this perfect, when we started really learning what it was like this perfect marriage for us, So like everything else, like, found people, you get going. The first iteration of Westbound was kind of like, okay, cool, like, this is fun. And then you kind of go, you make a record, and then you're like, oh, well, now we have a record. We should think about touring. Like, now you have to like make that decision. Are we gonna be a real band, or are we just gonna be like the local band? And that sounds terrible to say it that way, but you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Every band is a real band, right? Like, but you go from like, do we want to just stay local, or do we want to go like to a national level? And Thad, it was a huge influence on that too, because like we were doing our thing. There was cool stuff happening for us in Boston, cool stuff happening for us in New York. But he was like, dude, I want to do it. He's like, if we're not going to do anything, man, I'm not going to waste my time. Like, and like, it was on me. Like, I was like, our early tours, like, I booked all of our tours. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just how it went. And the Transplants were playing at a venue in town, and a few of us worked at this, like, it was the Avalon before it became House of Blues in Boston, which I know Lansdowne Street.
Yeah.
So Transplants were playing at the Avalon. We put out our first record on Stubborn Records, which is owned by King Django. King Django did stuff on Hellcat with Tim Armstrong. So when I met Tim, he's like, oh, I know about your record. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, I'd love to do something with your horn section. And I was like, sick, man. That's great. Like, what are you thinking? He's like, well, you guys want to play on a Transplants record? And that was like weird. That's so crazy that it was like, met the dude for the first time, and he's like, do you want to play on a Transplants record? And I was like, yeah. Like, when is it? He's like, you guys touring anytime soon? And dude, we had no plans, no tour book, nothing. He's like, I was like, yeah, we're touring. Like, yeah, when's that session? And he told me the dates that he had for that, for the Transplant session. I was like, dude, that's when we're going to be in town. That's so crazy. Like, I'm just lying my face off. You know what I mean? And he's like, all right, man. Well, he's like, hey, like, I'm on this tour. He's like, let me call you when I get back to LA. And like, and dude, I just went home, and like, I told Thad, like, we were in my apartment, and I was like, dude, we're going to California. And he's like, that's it. He's like, yeah, that's what we got to do. And like, I was just like, all right, well, let me get, like, next day, like, I didn't go to class. I probably skipped like the whole next week of class and just booked our first West Coast run. You know what I mean? And it was cool because a lot of shows sucked, but a lot of shows were really awesome. And we got to be on a Transplants record. So the other thing that we did when I found out we were going to do that, I was like, oh man, we need a new record. We need something fresh to go out there with, and also to tour and try to like gain some, make some money. So we made like a record in like 4 days. And I remember being at the session with Tim. We took a break and we started talking, and he's like, so do you have any music? What's up? And I was like, yeah, like, we've got this new record. Yeah, of course we do. And I'll never forget it, man. Like, being in Conway Studios, like, beautiful, huge speakers on the wall, like, sitting at the board, giving Tim the CD, CD gets put in, he presses play, the first song on that record is like a big drum fill with like big horns, and it just like hit so hard, and he was just like, dude, we got to do something on Hellcat. And I was just like, hell yeah, yes. You know what I mean? So like, all that work, just paid off. Like, I could have went home and been like, oh, I don't know, how are we going to get to California? Like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could have been talking to Tim and been like, no, we don't have anything planned. Like, I just knew in my gut that it was an opportunity, and I wanted to be on Hellcat. Like, the funny thing is that like the first Westbound record, we sent it to Hellcat, and we got a rejection letter, and we hung up the rejection letter in, remember rejection letters? Those were the best. We hung it up in our bathroom in our apartment. It was awesome. So I got to, every time, I went and took a leak, I got to look at that thing. And, fast forward, doing the Transplant session, hanging out with Tim, that's how the Hellcat thing started,
Man, yeah, I got chills, man, hearing you tell that story. It's so cool, dude. I love that.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, we just made it happen, and that's the thing too, like, even from that Transplant session to the time that we actually got, at that, your deal memo and you finalize your deal, like that takes a minute too. It took a long time,
yeah.
It took, I made it sound like it was a short span of time, but it also, like you said before, like the band started like around 2001. It took us a few years to kick around and make a little bit of a tiny bit of noise on the East Coast. But at that point, when we went and did that session, we sold out shows in LA before we ever sold out a show in Massachusetts, in Boston, where we were from.
Wow.
So like, that's food for thought there. That was like something that was like very, like a big indicator for us, where we were like, and who was a contributing factor to that too was Dickie from the Boss Tones.
All right.
He's like, you got to get out of your town, man. He was like, people in your town, because you're from here, they're going to hate you. But then you leave and then they love you. You know what I mean? And I'm just like,
makes so much sense.
Okay. And that was so true. That's how it played out,
That's another thing I tell bands all the time. Get out of town. I have bands that they come up to me. They're like, yo, when we're allowed to tour, the opening bands will, hey man, how'd you guys get to where you are? I'm like, get out of town. Like, stop playing here. Like, play here once every 3 months and then just go. Don't ever come back, obviously come back, but it's just be on tour forever, and that was our whole thing. Is like, once we left, I think it was April 26th of 2006. It took us 11 years to get on tour because we had no idea. I mean, we started when we were kids. We were like 14,
Yeah.
But we had some friends that had been on the road before. We went out with this band, Rude Buddha, from Virginia, and then a band called 33 West from DC. And they were some of those guys were in a ska band called Ska-licious back in the late 90s. And I remember I had their tape because I saw them. There's somewhere there's a VHS tape of me skanking in Jenkos.
Nice.
At an Edgewood ska show. And it's awful. I'm just big and just imagine a fucking giraffe in Jenkos trying to skank at the ska show. I'm 6'6", if you can't tell. But,
you're tall. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought it was cool to be on tour with those guys, and it was our first tour. And what we did was we broke it up into 3 sections. Basically, we went on tour for 6 weeks in 2006, spring to like April to June, spring to summer. And we broke it up, and one guy from Rude Buddha took a section of the country, I took a section of the country, and one guy from 33 West took another. And we ended up we went everywhere, like Midwest, like up to, we did Detroit and like over down to Texas and Florida. I mean, we're kind of all over the place. We never made it to West Coast. That was in the fall. We finally made it West Coast. But it was just once we did it, it was like immediate. Like I knew it was like, this is exactly what we have to be doing. We should have been doing this a long time ago, but let's just go. And then we just never looked back. There were times where, we'd be gone for months. Like I didn't have a family. I got 2 kids and a soon to be wife now. It's like, but even with my kids, my son is 10 years old. And so they've grown up with this. I have a 10 and 6-year-old and they've grown up with this. So, I've been gone, 6 to 8 months out of their lives, a year. And back then, man, it was just like, I remember we toured with this band called the B Foundation. We did like 4 months, like just crazy. And just back then it's like, it was all about just making friends, hitting that MySpace every day, getting in that DM and just hitting people back, keeping those numbers up and, and then just, where's the beer, Where's the Jaeger?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, man. That's how you do it. You make friends with other bands and you go to their town and you do show swaps. You bring them back to your town. You put them in front of your crowd. And then you keep doing that. And, and it takes time, but you got to put in the work,
It does, man. It takes time. And, and it doesn't matter. Like you just never ever stop working, and like the older I get, the more I realize that like the things that I want to be doing, cause like I'm 38 years old. Right. So like actually 39. So you get to this point where you have this realization where you're like, oh man, what got me here, like the first 40 years of my life, and like very lucky to be able to do creative things, to take care of your family and do all the things that you have to do, are not going to be the same things that are going to get me through the next 40 years, dude. Cause like things change and you evolve as a person. And like, for me, like the big thing is, I was talking to a friend about this the other day, is like, I just want to figure out how to be like a champion. I want to figure out how to champion people like in their courage for creativity, So like everyone talks about it, creativity, like it's this myth. It's just like this, I'm not creative, but the reality is that we're all creative people. We all have ideas. We're all problem solvers. Creativity in and of itself is just problem solving. That's all it is. And some people are better problem solvers than other people. You know what I mean? The way you say something in a song, you're trying to communicate. The way you're going to communicate, you're solving, hey, how do I say that? How do I say this in such a way that evokes emotion or whatever the case is? And that's happening all around us all the time. So creativity is happening all the time. And like the older I get, the more I just want to share that with people. The more I just want to be like, no, dude, like you don't understand. Like there's this thing you want to do, like go do it because you are creative. Like it actually just requires a lot of courage. It's not the creativity part you have to worry about. It's the courage part that you have to worry about. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's also like for myself, like, there's things that I've been sitting on for forever, like I've got this project that I want to do. I'm just here spilling the beans with you, man. It's so comfortable. But there's there's a project I've wanted to do called Ruby Nights for like forever. And it's like, it's that R&B thing. You know what I mean? And, it's taken me such a long time to just not care about like, oh, well, Westbound was this, or I'm supposed to be this, or like whatever. It takes a long time to get to the point where it's like, no, like this is what I want to do. And so I'm going to take a step, So, definitely sitting on songs that I'm just like you said earlier, people are going to hear this one day, but I know that once I start letting people hear it, I'm going to want to like put some sort of motion and machine behind it. So I'm just like, you're almost scared of that too, because you can't just do it for the hell of it. You know what I mean? It's got to do something. And some of us are just wired that way, right? Like you want to see it move the needle or hit a certain point. So yeah, man, like where I'm at in life, and which is why I love why we get to do and how we do the inevitables, it's that journey of creativity, dude. It's not just about music anymore. It's about this like creative philosophy. It's about productivity, and it's about like the challenge of like moving something from point A to point F. Forget about B, C, and D right now. I know we have to hit those steps along the way, but like I know I'm going to hit B, C, and D. Like there's no doubt in my mind I'm going to hit B, C, and D. I'm focused on F, and when I get to F, I'm going to focus on M. You know what I mean? And then finally move it all the way down to Z. So that's just how my brain works.
I love that. I feel like we have a lot of the same, approach to everything. I give, whatever I do, I don't have enough things to do. I always create new things. I have to create. Like I realized that a long time ago. I was like, when I'm not happy when I'm not doing something creative. If I get in a funk, if I get depressed, it's like, I'm like, I need to make something.
Yeah.
I need to, write a song, and then I'll get depressed or upset because I get stuck. I get hung up writing a song. Then it's like, I need to make a YouTube video. I should do another podcast episode. I did it the other day. Like, it was the same thing. It was like, man, I was like, I was drinking all weekend with friends because we drank like 4 days in a row. I never do that anymore. I'm just turned 40 years old,
Yeah.
and being off the road, it's like, it helps too. I don't have to drink every night, but, yeah, but like, Halloween, it was good times. I played a set, last Friday, my buddy's block party, that kind of stuff. But, and I just felt shitty every day, just like, and then start getting depressed and just like, I was like, I gotta turn the camera on and just talk about stuff. And by the end of it, I felt better. It was kind of like therapeutic,
Yeah.
It was like talking to a therapist, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get inhibited by their fear of, judgment from other people. and, you know, what they're going to think, you know, and I think most people are affected by that. And as you said, like, I do believe there's something special about all of us. There's like, we all have something cool and special that we can do, you know? And we live in a time now where you can monetize that and live off of that, as opposed to doing some job that you just hate, you know?
Yeah, man.
You know, I can talk about tech and computers and phones and stuff all day long, but I don't want to go work at Best Buy. You know, I don't want to be an Apple genius, you know, but, you know, so I know that, like, when I create something, I create a podcast or write an album or something, I'm going full force, and I'm just out to create, you know, long-term revenue streams, you know, things that, you know, with a song, like, I look at it as like an asset. You know, it's like putting your money in the stock market, for example. It's like, put your money to work for you. Well, put your songs to work, put your creativity to work, do the work one time, write a song, put it out. And now it's like, I have songs that are like putting money in my pocket, and the guys in my band in their pocket, you know, from 20 years ago, you know. It's just, I try to push that on the show as much as possible. Like, you can do these things. It takes time, and some people are going to want to fold and tap out because it gets frustrating. But, you know, if it's frustrating and you're like hating it, then you didn't love it to begin with. So do something that you love. You know, luckily for me, it's music and making things. But yeah, man, I just wish more people would find that about themselves. And the older I get, you know, I do realize those things, and I feel even better. Like, it was weird turning 30, you know, but that was cool.
Yeah.
And then people were like, 40. I was like, I feel great, dude. I feel 28, you know, like,
Yeah, man.
I'm doing what I love, man.
Exactly. I agree. It's the same. I feel like I'm more creative now. Well, just because you just have a better understanding of how it works, and you have a better understanding of not only what you want to accomplish, but the how. And that makes life, you know, a lot easier. And I think, for me, so I mentioned earlier, like, my wife is an entrepreneur, right? She owns her own business. She's a professional organizer, right? But she's hella creative. Like, so even being around that, like watching her run her business, like talking about ideas or working on a project around the house, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm around it all the time. Like, I appreciate that part of our relationship so much because, like, you know, and I probably don't tell her as often as I should, but like, it's a huge inspiration because we're problem solving, like, you know what I mean? And like, that productivity happens and you're like, oh yeah, that's what it feels like to get it done. You know what I mean? So you're just like, okay, cool. You know, and I think that we have to find those rhythms for ourselves so that those things, you know, constantly are happening. They're not, you know, creativity and productivity don't just happen. They're disciplines. You just got to keep practicing, you know. So whether you stop, you know, whether you spend 20 minutes a day with yourself, just jotting down ideas, whether you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to take the next 15 minutes and just focus on a melody, bam. You know, if that's happening all the time and those disciplines are happening all the time, if you take a look at the end of your week, you know, it's Wednesday right now. Come Sunday, you probably have like 15 great things to work off of, you know, and then you might go, I did 15 things, but these 2 things are rad. So I'm going to get rid of the other, you know, 13, and I'm going to hang here because I've got something here, you know. And it's just like, if that's happening all the time, like I said, if the needle's moving forward every day, you're like, oh man, we just did this. Well, what about this? And what about this? You know what I mean? It's that discipline, dude, you know?
Yeah, it's a craft, man. And you got to keep working on it all the time. And just, you know, songwriting, you know, that's something that, God, I've been doing that since I was 12 years old, I think. Wrote my first song. Pretty bad, but pretty good too, you know, for what it was. Yeah, man. When I produce bands, and I've been getting into mixing and stuff. Like, I've been mixing a lot of our stuff lately, and some other bands. And like, when I just like anything else, when I approach it, I want to be present. I give it, you know, 200%. And I know that like it's not my band or whatever, but I'm helping create this thing. So like, I want to make sure that it's got all the bells and whistles that my own stuff would have. I want to make bands sound amazing, really reach their full potential. And I don't know, just the love of it, man. I love, I love being involved and as I said, like just creating and making stuff. I don't know. There's a passion there. If you're not passionate about something, you probably shouldn't do it, and that's why I always stress again about the job thing. Like, if you do not like this job, I mean, I understand maybe it's got benefits and you're paying the bills and stuff, but like, what else can you do? What do you really want to do? Like, what do you do at 5 p.m.? Like, can you come home and start working on your thing? Or maybe you got kids, okay, do that. 9 o'clock, you put them in bed. Like, what are you doing? It's like, don't Netflix, like work on the thing. And eventually it can turn into something. And I don't know, I'm just a big pusher for that stuff. And sometimes I get annoyed.
I love
with my
how
friends,
Gary Vee talks about patience, because it's so true.
Totally.
And it's patient. And as you were talking, and as like in this conversation, like I'm just kind of thinking through like right now, like we're giving this kind of broad, big picture, but like there's all this foundational and philosophical stuff that is in the underbelly. You know what I mean? Like if you ever see that picture of like the iceberg where it's like the tip of the iceberg's out of the water, you know what I mean? And it shows you everything underneath.
Yep.
It's like, it's the same thing with everything we're talking about, because like you might have a philosophy of how to get something done that works for you, right? Because part of it, I don't know if you're an Enneagram guy. If you're not an Enneagram, it's like a personality test, but it's pretty solid. It's not like the other ones. So it uses these like this number system, and it's pretty spot on. So like I'm a 4. So thing about being a 4 is individuality is really important. So even like my friends, like it's important that like the people around me are individuals, that I feel like that, it's like, hey, are you being yourself? Like, are you secure? Are you like, I love me being an individual, but I love the people around me being individuals as well. You know what I mean? Because then you get all these different, thoughts, and people can be themselves and they can say it without worrying about stuff. And that's when the good stuff happens, when you're collaborating, especially. But the point is that there's all this like philosophy and there's all this practice that we don't ever get to talk about. And so people might be listening to this and they're like, oh man, those guys are just hungry. Like those guys are just like, they're just wired a certain way. It's like, yeah, but like the thing is, the secret sauce is that we figured out how to fix it for ourselves. And that process is what has allowed us to do what we've done. Because I didn't watch what you did, or I didn't watch what my friends did. I learned from that, but I learned that the secret sauce was figuring out how to fix it for me so that it could be successful for me on a day-to-day. You know what I mean? Like even like working with Vinny on music and comics and all that stuff, like he's got a philosophy that I recognize is his. And I love that because it allows me to then bring my philosophy into it. And I'm not trying to be like him. He's not trying to be like me. And we both attack these problems with these two perspectives that we're just going to be open-minded about. You know what I mean? So even more creativity, even more problem solving comes from it. But I would let people know, like, and the secret sauce, dude, is you figuring out how it works for you, because if you have that job that you hate, you might need that job that you hate, dude. That's how you pay for groceries. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So for yourself, what then needs to happen so that 2, 3, 5 years from now, you're not at that job. You know what I'm saying?
Gary Vee talks a lot about reverse engineering, sort of like looking at the end result and saying, okay, what are the points to get there? Go backwards, and what do I need to do? It's like I could make it a music, I guess, analogy here. If there's an artist that I want to work with, that's one of my favorite artists, let's say, or maybe I want to have Nick Hexum on my podcast from 311 because they're one of my favorite bands from when I was a kid, or maybe I want to go on tour with 311. So we did that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. but we put ourselves on the path to make that happen. It wasn't like it wasn't quite a serendipitous thing.
Hmm.
And I think with I think luck is I think you kind of create luck, right?
Mm.
You have to create opportunities for yourself and windows to get in, even if it's small, and so me just sitting here, just playing shows in Maryland, and not doing anything, maybe not putting out records, things like that. That's probably not going to get me on tour with one of my favorite bands.
Hmm.
But if I go on tour, if I lay the groundwork, if I start building my scene and building my audience, and then eventually start reaching out to people's management or reach out to, Chad Sexton, the drummer for 311, actually mixed one of our songs from one of our albums years ago.
Cool.
That sort of opened that up a little bit. And, it's these little things along the way. And then eventually, I guess 311's management kind of, maybe with having worked with their people before, they kind of saw what we were doing and they gave us a shot. They say, hey, you want to open some shows, and that wouldn't have happened if we sort of just kind of sat on our hands or just went, well, I don't know what to do. It's like, do something, you have to there's gotta be that fire in there, and, I worked at a restaurant, I worked a bunch of, warehouse jobs. I was driving forklifts and, loading trucks and stuff. I did that for years, man, and I worked at a restaurant. I was bartending and serving, and I hated it. I hated doing that job, but it was the only job that would let me go away and come back. And I still think Olive Tree in Aberdeen, Maryland, exit 85. You got to go. Awesome crab cakes and pasta. They took care of me. They let me come back, and they were really cool about it. Other jobs wouldn't let me do that. In fact, I got fired from a couple of jobs because originally they said, yeah, that's fine. Then I came back. They're like, oh, no, I'm sorry. We can't have you leaving. I'm like, okay. I didn't quit my job until 7 years ago. And that was 20, I don't know, almost 20 years into being a musician. You know what I mean? Like at that point,
Yeah.
it takes a long time. You have to have the patience, but you have to have the drive to want to keep going and believe in it so much. And you have to have the passion. You have to love it, as I said before. So yeah, you kind of, what you said a few minutes ago. Yeah. What can you do to get out of that job that you do need at this moment? Flip it to where you don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
But you gotta
I like to call it getting in motion, like you just got to be in motion. You got to be moving towards the thing, kind of go along with what you were saying about like creating your own luck, like if you're not in motion, if you're not moving towards the goal, then like stuff can't happen, but if you are, that's when the good stuff, you have a different perspective. You can look at it from a different angle. You can see it from a different view. But yeah, dude, it's funny. I remember so when we first went out to LA and I was telling you about that transplants thing, I was working at H&M and like they wanted to make me like a manager, you know what I mean? And I remember like going to my boss and being like, hey, like I got to go on tour, but I'll be back and like whatever. And like, and she like put her foot down, she's like, gave me this whole big speech. She's like, look, we're considering you for this, and this is a great opportunity. And like, it's a take it or leave it kind of whatever, blah, 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 blah. So what are you going to do? Like totally like trying to strong arm me a bit, And I was like, I'm going to leave. Like, see you later. Like, hey man, like, thank you. But, like, I got to figure this thing out. I got to, if I don't go figure this thing out, I don't ever want to live the rest of my life going, well, what if I had gone? What if I had left? Like,
that's the worst thing.
But it's funny. It's funny how that goes, man. But again, like I said before, there's you get in motion and you start to build your philosophy around everything. You start to build your practices. You start to recognize, some people recognize it sooner than later than others. I wish I would have recognized it much sooner. Like, hey, this is a discipline. And what I wish that, when I kind of touch on regret, I just wish I had more fun. I was always so focused on like, oh, well, we got to do this and it's got to do this and it's got to be like this and we got to get to this place. And and I'm really grateful too that I did have a band where I had people in my band. Like, so Gideon, who played keys in Westbound, one of my best friends, I love him to death. He's definitely, a brother. He's a guy who kind of enjoyed that like TM kind of part of everything. You know what I mean? He's a guy who like was looking at, okay, like, hey, this is what this costs. And, so you start to develop those pieces in your band that you need to get from point A to point B. But in that we're both very like similar in the sense of like, we want to get, him more than me. We want to get stuff done. But like, I do wish I could go back and just have a little bit more fun. You know what I mean? Like when you're that guy who's like, the guy in the band, whether you're the primary songwriter and you're dealing with like the business stuff and you're trying to, sometimes it's hard to just stop and have fun. Like I wish I could have, caught certain moments where I'm just like, holy crap. Cause dude, I was a kid who grew up in Newark, New Jersey, right? And then I moved to like the burbs eventually. My parents worked really hard. I wasn't the kid who like, got to do like the Florida vacations. Like, what I mean? I never thought I was going to leave New Jersey. You know what I mean? So to be playing a festival in, Granada, or like in Spain or Switzerland or, the fact that like music took me around the world, like, man, what a privilege that is, what a gift. I wish though I could have just like kind of chilled a bit and just had a little bit more fun to be like, oh dude, like I'm hanging out in Switzerland right now. Like that's wild.
That's
you know
incredible.
what I mean? Versus like, oh man, we're in Switzerland today, but we got to catch this commuter flight because we got to go play this show in Spain and we got to go, you know what I mean?
Exactly what you mean.
Yeah, that would be like my only thing. That'd be like the thing that that's the other, besides fix it for yourself and build your philosophy. I would also want people to know to like have fun doing it. So that is exactly what I'm trying to even do now more with like the inevitable stuff that we're doing and these projects. Like I'm just trying to enjoy it, man. I'm trying to have fun with it, and
Now's the time, like you have nothing else to focus on. I mean, you have family and stuff, but like as far as the business, it's like, you can't tour. So it's like, man, well, that frees up some time. Cause I know there's definitely like things that, there's a lot of things that I couldn't do that I can't do from the road, like produce bands and things. And that's fun to really get into that. And, I've always been the type, I can't remember a lot of times where I was like, oh, I wish I was doing this, like kind of thing. I've always had that just like, I don't care. Like I'll sit on MySpace for 10 hours. You know what I mean? I'll just do the thing. And I'm happy just sitting here. Like a lot of times, like I'll wake up at the hotel on tour. I'll get up early, sometimes hit the gym. Been really shitty about that lately. And I love leaving the hotel room, get a shower, leave the hotel room, and then go down to the lobby with all my stuff and just pull out the laptop, throw in my buds, and just work with a cup of coffee. I love doing that. There's definitely been times where, we're in some cool city or some cool area, and we got to take off like right away. You don't get time to really explore and check things out. There probably have been many times where, the family's taken a backseat. I know for a fact, and it was all in the name of just trying to make this thing happen. And, I'm finally at a point where, I'm not anywhere near rich or anything like that, but I can support the family with what I do creatively. No need for a regular job, for the last 7 years now, but even the last few years, it's just gotten, like 5 years ago, it was still kind of scary, but just things have gotten better. And it's the result of having done all that work. And, I try to give the family more attention, even though it always seems like I have to do something, but I just feel like I can't stop, and it's like that. It's probably a good and a bad thing. There is a moment where you do have to like, all right, man, I'm going to chill. I'm gonna sit here, watch a movie with the kids,
Yeah, man.
or just take some time for yourself. Like, that's not this. Play a video game. I don't know, do something, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
wild.
knew I knew that like when I got married, I was going to have to pay like I had to focus, on being married. Like my wife was touring with us, and I remember 2009 Warp Tour being on the bus in Atlanta, and our booking agent came out to the show and our manager. And I remember we were all sitting on the bus. We had a new record come out. We were on Warp Tour. As soon as Warp Tour wrapped, we were going to Europe. As soon as Europe wrapped, we had a US tour planned, So like I knew I had to finish that stuff. But when we started talking in that conversation, like, we were like, okay, this is this album cycle. When do you guys want to write another record? And so, okay, cool. We'll write another record and we'll shoot for blah, 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 blah. And before you know it, you're in 2012. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just sitting there, just like you're like, oh my gosh. And I remember like looking at my wife at the time being like, hey, like there's stuff you want to do too, right? You know what I mean? Like there's stuff you want to get done. And, her being awesome, she's like, well, whatever you want to do, like I'll follow you wherever you want to go. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, that's amazing. That's beautiful. But I know there's stuff you want to do.
Yeah.
And there's piece of me that was always like, I should go home and figure out how to be married. You know what I mean? Like I've watched so many of my friends have kids and be on the road and do it. And, and all sorts of things happen. And I just knew that if I was going to have any success at it, I needed to go home and figure out how it happened. And in the beginning, like, it was tough because I would have to leave a little bit, and then to finally you make that decision where you're just like, being home is just super important, and kids even, change the whole thing, I remember like being on the road when my daughter was like 2 and just her being like, okay, cool. So you're coming home tonight. I'm like, no, like dad's not coming home for like another, 14 days.
Yeah.
So there's just things that for me, I knew that I needed to figure out what the next thing was because family just was going to be important, and, being home and being able to be creative and pandemic happening, has been a blessing in disguise too. Because I mean, I haven't been touring the way other guys have been touring for the past however many years now, but like, dude, I love being home, I love bedtime, I love dinner. I love all these little things that like, that you get to be a part of and you get to see, but again, just forces me to get more creative and like, okay, I love this. How do I keep this and do this other thing too? You know what I mean? So it's hard, man. And so the people that are out there doing it, like, dude, I give them a ton of props, man, because it's not easy, So.
Yeah, I'm quite enjoying being home as well. It's been great. Yeah, and we were just having a conversation actually before the show this morning. My future wife and I, how I wouldn't be able to be able to do what I'm doing without her.
Yeah, man.
And you have to recognize
Amen.
that. And sometimes, I even may, as grateful and appreciative as I am for everything, and I try to embrace more of that as I get older. But sometimes, yeah, you forget. Things happen constantly, and you sort of lose sight of things. And the important thing is, the family first, and it can get tied up with, well, if my family wants to survive, I got to be able to do this thing, and where do you draw the line? I saw Weird Al talking one time on an interview about, when he's creating, when he's working, it doesn't look like he's working. He's like, my kids come in and they're young and they don't understand daddy's working, but I'm just like this, like just sitting here in the chair at the desk in the office, just like this, like and it's like, well, you're just sitting there. It's like, well, no, I'm working. I'm thinking. I'm working things out. I'm creating,
Hmm.
and that happens a lot. I'm like, Dad, hold on, baby. I'll be right there. Just hold on. And she's like, you're ridiculous. Like you look insane. You're not doing shit. Come over here and play with me. It's a weird life that the kids didn't ask for. But they've been super cool about it. And ultimately, I know they appreciate what I do. My son, he's hilarious. He's like, my friends at school think we're famous and rich. And I'm like, well, we're not. But that's cool. And he's like proud. I can tell he's like proud.
Absolutely, man. Dad's doing his thing.
Yeah, and really, what's funny, what you just said there, like it made me think when I started realizing that. I was like, huh, this kid is watching me, and then my daughter's watching me. It's like
Hmm.
I want them to see, the very things that I'm, talking about and pushing all the time, is like that this stuff is possible. It's possible to do the thing you want to do, but you have to work for it. You got to focus and really be driven and passionate for, about the thing that you're chasing. And it can happen. And I just love that, just like you and your wife out, your kids see two entrepreneurs going for it constantly.
Hmm.
And I want them to see that work ethic, and I want them to hopefully embrace and have that work ethic. Yeah, I think it's important, man. I don't know. They can do whatever they want to do.
Right.
I'll support them, but I don't want them to, be the kid that gets told they can do whatever they want when they get older, and all of a sudden it's like you can do like 5 things, and they're all like trades or something, like.
But that's the thing, dude. That's the thing about like being parents, right? Like they're gonna have to fix it for themselves. Like it's not our responsibility. Like all we can do is build a solid foundation, right? All we can do is build a solid foundation and build a solid home, right? Because I don't care who you are, and we can put this in the touring analogy, like music analogy. You got to always be able to come home, right? Like,
Yeah.
like if you think about that, there's so many songs written about home, like, and sometimes when you're on tour, like there's nothing like coming home. You know what I mean? Like you need to regroup, you need to whatever it is. So solid foundation, got to always be able to come home, and yeah, like, and that's all you can really count, because whatever decisions they make, they have minds, man. They're going to make their own decisions, like, um, and it's like something even like between like me and like my mom, like, I grew up with a single mom kind of deal, right? Like, so like, she's not responsible for all of it. They're my decisions. Like, at one point she had to be done. Like, like people say like, oh, well, like, the job of a parent is never done. Like, no, but it kind of is, like there's aspects to it, sure, that is never done, but there's a lot of it that is done. Like, they're going to make their own decisions, and they've got to learn how to live with their own decisions, and they've got to deal with consequences, and like, you know what I mean? And like, um, yeah, it's all, again, foundational, man. And it's all philosophical. Like, well, what do you really believe? Like, how do you really believe life works? Because that's what we're teaching our kids. Like, to tie it back into everything that we're talking about, what we're teaching our kids is, this is how dad believes life works. This is how we believe we're going to be, quote unquote, successful, right? Because success is relative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what do we believe? That's what we're constantly showing our kids.
You gotta.
From the littlest thing. Well, Dad, you said I can't say that, but you said that.
Yeah.
To the big things of like,
Yeah.
oh, when
Leading by example.
when this happens, or
super
this
huge.
big thing happens, or when you got to fix this in the house, or whatever the case is. Like, this is what we believe. This is how we get it done. Like, this is what we do. So that's what we're constantly teaching our kids is just what we believe.
Yeah, we we took our kids to a Black Lives Matter rally back in, when all this stuff started going down early this year. We wanted them to see what it's all about, and let you know you had people on the mic for a couple hours, just talking about their struggles and why, why
Yeah.
they feel the way they feel, and hearing the stories.
Hmm.
There's like a 80-year-old man telling his story,
Yeah.
living in this very county, just all the awful things that happened to him and his family,
Yeah.
and it's like, those things, and gay people getting married, and
Hmm.
just equality all around, and just, not having that sort of, I feel like that stuff is taught, man. That bias, it's like taught, and whether it's directly or indirectly, just seeing your dad say the things he says, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
about somebody, they learn from that stuff. And I made a post about that. When this is all going down, I was like, racism is taught, be a better parent. And
Mm.
and people are like, everybody's agreeing, like, yeah, like totally. There wasn't anybody like pushing back, but there were a couple of people that were like, well, uh, basically saying it's not always about parenting. And I was like, no, it is. It's like my kids, my kids are going to spend the first, 14, 15 years of their lives with me,
Hmm.
before they're really going out into the world. That is exactly the time where they need to be learning all of these values, and sort of laying the foundation for who they're going to be, the type of person they're going to be,
Yeah,
and their
man.
beliefs. And it's like, we try to, I like to think that I have a pretty balanced approach. I'm probably, I'm definitely more left, but like it's pretty balanced. I'm not extreme by any means, left or right. And it's just kind of like, I just want my kids to just be good to others and don't hurt anyone, and let people live, man. It's, you know, and then also, give them the tools to deal with, bullies, and all the bad things that come our way, because life's going to happen,
Yeah, man.
and it's just like, just trying to, parenting is crazy. It's like the weirdest thing ever, and you're trying to build a person, trying to make a person that's going to function properly in society and hopefully in harmony. And it's
Hmm.
like, it's scary sometimes. You're like, what am I doing? Like, that one thing I said, or that one thing I did, how is that going to affect them? Is it
Yeah.
going to affect them forever, or later,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. And I think guys like us have like so much growing to do, right? Because like you
Totally.
spend so many years on the road doing knucklehead things. Who I was on the road, 20 years ago is not who I am today,
No.
you know? And the last thing any human being wants to be judged on is like their mistakes. You know what I mean? Like you hope that we grow and we evolve. And then to the point of like what you just made is like, dude, yeah, it gets super heavy because you're like, okay, I've got to yeah, like I've got to pour into this person. And so every decision that you make, and every, how they watch me love their mom, and how they watch
Yes.
me go to work, and how they watch me, make music, or whatever it is, everything is just being scrutinized. And my wife and I always say it too. We're like, hey, there's going to be something that they're going to come to us with. Like, there's going to be something that they're going to be like, hey, Dad, when you did this, you know, back in, November of 2020, and, like I was 7 years old, and I get that like I'm 19 now, but when you did this, I remembered that specific day. Like, did it really mess with me? Like, what was that all about? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the trick to, and this is what my wife and I talk about, and what we believe is you just have to be willing to listen. Like, whatever you do, it's not about getting defensive. It's not about defending your parenting. It's about listening and just being ready to be empathetic and just be like, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? Because like you want to have, again, home's got to be a safe place that you come back to, dude.
Yeah.
So if I start defending stuff, home's not safe anymore. If I start justifying stuff, home's not safe anymore. So, yeah, that's like the wild thing to think about. And like, if you would have asked me however many years ago, being in a band, going on tour, like that this is where my head would be, like I'd be like, you're out of your mind. Like I'm not supposed to get married. Like I'm supposed
I'm
to
not a
just play
family
music
man.
forever. I'm not supposed to Like getting married and having a family just gets in the way. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not supposed to have any of those things. I'm supposed to still be on tour.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to still be doing, you know what I mean? Like it's wild. It's really, really wild, man.
Yeah, everything was in the way, back then. Everything was in the way. It was, I was breaking up with girls and, losing jobs and, everything was in the way. I didn't want to go to school, I finished high school, but I did 2 semesters of college just to try to make my grandmother happy. But,
Yeah.
I fucking hated it. I was like, waste of money. I should have bought a 4-track, like this is,
Yeah.
what I should have done with that money. And I love how you said the way you love their mother. Like man, I'm like always like hugging and kissing on Danielle. It's like, and then to the point where my daughter's like kind of weird about it now. She's like, stop it. You get 1 kiss. That's it. Like no more. I'm like, hey, don't you want this? I'm loving your mom. Like, this is what we do. I want you guys to be in a loving household.
Yeah.
My daughter, my 6-year-old, gives me shit for it. It's like super weird.
That's cool, man.
So, man, this hour flew by, dude. Crazy.
True.
Let me get into the inevitables thing real quick because first off, the Westbound train stuff is great. Like your voice is awesome, and I love like the slapback delay. You guys do that 60s reggae really well. The 60s ska thing. It sounds awesome, dude. But the inevitables thing is a little heavier, more modern approach, ska punk reggae thing. I know, Vinny's one of the masterminds here. I love that you guys are doing like a comic book and did some animated stuff as well, right?
It's coming a little bit. Yeah, like we got some animated videos coming soon.
So cool, man. And it's kind of like an all-star thing. Like, you've got Matt Appleton and Billy Cottage, the Real Big Fish and Interrupters. And how many people are in the band?
So you've got myself, you've got Vinny, you've got Alex. So the 3 of us, kind of songwriters, main creators. And then you've got Matt Appleton, like you said, doing horns. And then you've got Billy Cottage, John DeDominici from Bomb the Music Industry and Jeff Rosenstock Band, who I love. And then you've got Sean Paul from Nightmares for a Week on the vocals, who also mixed the record, which I give him a ton of props for his whole approach. The cool thing about having Sean Paul mix this record is that he's not a ska punk or reggae dude at all. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like the sounds he went for and like the tones that he like, guitars just sound massive on the record.
Yes.
I love the way he approached it. And I think that it was the perfect thing to do. And I think it also sets us apart a little bit, even musically. So yeah, you've got all those dudes who play in all those bands. And like, we were shocked that they all said yes to being a part of it, and like, we're stoked on it. And I think Vinny and I have been friends for a long time. I think the way I've described it is between musically, Vinny, myself, and Alex, it's just like the perfect funnel. Alex is like this musical encyclopedia who like draws from, the Smiths and The Cure and Bell and Sebastian, but also is really knowledgeable about, he plays in Big D and the Kids Table, so he's really knowledgeable about the ska punk thing, but also really knowledgeable about reggae and old ska too. He's just, dude knows like everything. Like, he's just that guy. So the 3 of us are just, there's a lot of trust, and we each get to kind of come at each other, no holds barred, and do what's best for the song. It's never personal. You know what I mean? So the funnel is just, it's a great mix.
That's a good workflow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about the mixing and the sound of it, because that's the first thing I noticed. Is like, wow, this sounds really good. Like everything, the guitars, the drums, it's got that full like major label sound. Like the guy did a great job on that mix.
Yes. I'm really glad. I'm really glad I went there. I know some people were like, kind of like, oh, it's like too slick. It's too slick. But I'm like, you know what, man? Like, and it was fun for me because I was always trying to make records that like sounded old, that were like vintagey sounding records. So to get a chance to make, why would you not go for it? Especially like in a pandemic, like just given the circumstance that we're in, like, why would you not go for like big slick sounding. And whatever, it's preference. Like it's all good, but I'm stoked. I love the way that record sounds.
Sounds awesome. If I were to approach, doing a, like a 60s ska song the way that I would do it the same way. I would try to get those vintage tones and, throw that slap back on the vocals and things. I would totally do that. And those, the harmonies sound rad behind it, like just, yeah, absolutely. But anything that I do, like, with the Ballyhoo stuff, I try to go for like the biggest sound possible. I love ambience and big fat mixes. And I think there's definitely a time and a place. The Mad Caddies did Punk Rock Steady, and that record sounds awesome. And it's very like down here as far as like it has that, it just has a good vintage reggae sound to it. And it's not crazy in your face. It's not supposed to be, so, but the Inevitables thing, it feels perfect. I definitely didn't think like, oh, I wish this was a little more lo-fi and, like
nah, man.
70s.
Yeah. I'm glad that we didn't go lo-fi, and I'm glad that it was weird because it got to a point where with the guitars where we were just kind of like, they just need to be a little bit more aggressive. And like, even like Sean Paul was like, are you sure? And you know what I mean? And like, it's like, well, dude, like, and he's like a modest guy, right? Like super modest, like really humble. And he was just like, I'm like, dude, you've got these, they sound so awesome. Like, why wouldn't you just like highlight what you've already done? And he's like, well, all right, cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like no ego in it whatsoever. Yeah. It's just like, so once we got it there and once they started coming in, it was just like, we loved living in that space, like, I love it. It's great.
I'd like to talk to him and find out how he did that because I'm always striving for that. Just
dude, he's a dude that to me is a big, like is part of the secret sauce for us in terms of him and my buddy Tim Piniella is this dude I know here in Jersey. He fantastic mix engineer as well, but also like fantastic like mastering dude. So like, I find myself talking about the creative process of the Inevitables a lot, but like a big component is like those two dudes, like, the mixes and then the mastering job, like, which a lot of people don't geek out on the mastering side, but like, dude, like the frequencies that Tim was able to bring out and the way I feel like he just rounded out the mixes perfectly. So again, why a big reason why like those guitars and drums like sound the way they do,
That's great. Yeah. It definitely, when you have a good team in place and kind of leave it to the pros, like I love that, man. Like I love like working things, just making my stuff. But like there are definitely times where I'm like, you know what? Instead of me doing the art, I'm going to let somebody that does this every day and is going to devote all their time because I just don't have the time. Yeah. I know I wouldn't put my full effort forward, so I'm like, things like that. and if we ever came upon somebody that was, like I said, I've been mixing all this stuff, but I don't have to mix it all. It's a good way for us to save money. And the stuff sounds pretty good, for what it is. But if, we have the opportunity to work with a mixer and we got to, it was the right price and all that. Like, why not, sure. Dude? Go for it,
Yeah. I mean, for the thing that I love is that we never had the conversation of like, this is how a ska punk record is supposed to sound. We never had that conversation when writing the songs, and we never had that conversation on the production side of it. So it didn't box, like from the jump, we didn't box ourselves in, you know what I mean? So when we started hearing the sounds, and that was the thing too, like, I guess if you want to geek out a little bit too, like sending guitars over clean, like just nice, great, super high DI signal, super clean, and then let all the other stuff happen, on the other side of the, which a lot of times is different when you're making a record. You go into the studio and you're like, I need this guitar tone, I need this kind of overdrive, I need this blah blah blah, like, you know what I mean? But we just like, let's start with really clean sounds, and got really lucky. Like everything that came over, like the horn stuff that Billy and Matt were sending over sounded great.
Those guys are so pro, dude.
I know they're so good. And then even the organ stuff that Billy sent over just sounded so same thing. And then dude, John from Jeff Rosenstock band, dude, we would send him demos, like, and 30 minutes later we'd have the tracks ready to go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love stuff like that. And again, just clean tone, clean. And then there's some stuff where he was just like, oh, like I want to try this. Like, and like, he would like kind of be like, oh, I did this. Like, is that cool? And we were like, yeah, man, like, absolutely. You know, like you like you said, leave it to the pros, let the people do their thing. You know, we guided the vision. We gave the vision as best we could. We knew what the vibe was going to be, and we were very aware of the vibe. And if anything went outside of that, then that's when we had to like rein it back in. But we weren't trying to like micromanage at all. You know, for me, I felt like a pain because I had to be the guy that was like, hey, like, we're trying to get these tunes done. Here's the deadline. Like, where we're at, we're like 4 songs in. I need 3 more songs from you. Like, are we going to get this done? Like, you know what I mean? And then a deadline would get blown because that's what all musicians do. And then it's just like,
what's a deadline?
But here's the one you can't blow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, are we going to do this? And, you know, and it was great. Like, everybody was just so cool about everything, you know, and solid sounds. And yeah, Sean Paul, dude, crushed.
Yeah, I'm gonna remember that dude's name. Well, yeah, man. Well, congrats on everything. Like, I love that you're still pursuing this, and you're creating projects. And I love that you and your wife are both going for it, you know, in your respective ways. And you know, with a family in tow. I mean, it's definitely not easy.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. And
yeah, thanks for having me. This is rad.
Yeah, where can people find you?
So you can find me personally. I'm Obi Mean Machine, Obi_Mean Machine, mean with 2 E's on Instagram. We are the Inevitables on Instagram, inevitables.world online. And yeah, like, I feel like we're just getting started. So everything we talked about, there's so much more between now and next year that is just going to be flowing out. So I'm stoked.
Oh, I'm so pumped for you, man. I love the drive, man. It gets me fired up. I can't wait to fucking get back into my session as soon as we're done here. So
there it is. Yeah, you're gonna go make stuff, and you know, and you guys, there's so much that you guys are doing too. Like what you said, like you guys go for that pop thing. I feel like when I hear your records, there's that like that pop vibe, which makes perfect sense.
Can't help it. I mean?
It's like it's right on. It's exactly what it needs to be. So you got it.
Thanks, man.
You're doing your thing.
Thanks, man. I love melodies, dude. I just love big melodies. Like shit, like earworms. I don't know. I can't help it. I listen to the radio when I was a kid, man.
They work.
Yeah, that's it. But dude,
yeah, thanks for having me, man. This has been great. We got pretty deep today too, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I like to kind of peel the layers a little bit. You know, I'm like Oprah.
There it is.
Except nobody gets a car. You know, I'm sorry, guys. Nobody gets a car.
All right, brother.
Well, Obi, take care, man. Tell the fam what's up, and I'm stoked for you and everything that's happening.
Peace, man. Thanks so much.
Later, bro.